going to make adjustments to the airflow in those buildings to ensure that they are in alignment. And NECC is managed by the city, and they use windows for ventilation, just to provide an update in the vent systems. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sandra to speak a little bit more about the safety protocols within the elementary schools. Sandra?
Thank you, Dr. Estrella. So more recently, we've been working with elementary school principals to develop reopening operation manuals that will be shared at some point with all our families. But in the meantime, we've been working to get some consistency in practices across all our elementary schools. And some of the focus has been to reduce the density and to ensure safe environments. So in this slide, what you see is some of the protocols that we've updated that are going to be unique to each elementary school, because a lot of it depends on the plan and the way that the school building is laid out. But the arrival is going to be staggered for each school, and the staggering is going to occur in a matter of a few minutes. So it's not going to be staggered to the point that it's disruptive according to the start and end of the school day as it's been determined. There's also going to be a daily health screening that's going to be completed by the parent that we will be collecting upon the child's arrival. There are going to be multiple entry points. So we're trying to not have a bottleneck situation where we have a lot of people arriving at the same time in any one location. So the principals have been very thoughtful about how to assign different entrances and exits given where the classroom is located and which exit and entrance is available for families. And then there's going to be hand washing upon arriving to the classroom for students. As far as the way that the classrooms are set up, your child will belong to a classroom cohort. There's going to be minimal mixing between the cohorts, and that will remain their cohort until if anything changes with the health guidelines, but that's the elementary cohort is their classroom. I'm sorry, Dr. Estrella, the slide. Okay, it's back. We've also made sure that there's 6 feet of distance between all of the children and how they're seated. So in order to do so, we had to remove non-essential furniture to make sure that classrooms are spacious and that they're accommodating the 6 feet of the desks being apart. In cases where students are sharing a table but still maintaining 6 feet, we do have a plexiglass partition between the 2 pupils. And there are going to be mask breaks that are scheduled. And in the town hall that we had with staff, this became a question of what do those breaks look like and how are we scheduling them? And we are scheduling them as a class in a routine or in a small group as much as possible outside with making sure that the children are socially distanced and that they have somewhere to put their mask, whether that's like a little brown paper bag or a Ziploc. But it will be a routine that classroom teachers will adopt so that we can make sure that if we are taking a mask break, that we're doing so safely. And we put the mask back on and have to wash or sanitize our hands. Transitions have also been organized. There's very little transitions in elementary school, especially in this environment. But let's say if everybody is going out for recess, that time has also been organized so that we don't have everybody in that grade level going out in the hallway at the same time and minimizing the density within our hallways. And same thing for dismissal. So the dismissal is also staggered. Not so much that it'll cause disruption to families, but the individual school principals will communicate to the family, if you're a 5th grade parent, what time your arrival and dismissal will be. And again, they'll communicate what entrance you'll be using or where your drop-off area is going to be located. And we're still making sure that the buses are being loaded from back to front and adhering to all the safety protocols that we shared with you previously about the buses.
And one other piece that I like to mention is that we also purchased portable washing stations to increase the number of facilities available for kids to engage in hand washing. But we also have hand sanitizing stations in every single classroom throughout the district. So students will have an array of different options to and stations where they can sanitize their hands. Now, in terms of the schedule for our elementary school students, we, as articulated during the first forum, have all elementary school students, if parents choose to, in person, while those that parents elect to continue distance learning have the option to continue virtually. We want to walk you through the day in the life of a student in person, as well as a child that is learning, is engaging in distance learning. Because of the way that we are organizing the program, students at home as well as in person will be collaborating together in the classroom at the same time. So we're going to use Malik, a fourth grader in a general ed classroom, as an example of what the day in the life of the child will look like. So Malik will ride the bus at around 7:30 in the morning and will arrive to school at approximately 8:15. Between 8 and 8:15, he's gonna be working towards organizing his station, making sure his equipment is ready to go. Around 8:15, Malik will transition to participate in an SEL activity. And from that activity, Malik will then immerse himself in his morning classes. His morning classes will take place between 8:30 and 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Obviously, he will have breaks. In some sessions, he will be in with the whole class and the teacher, and in other instances, he will be working in small groups with a paraeducator. And within this block of time, there will be tech breaks as well as math breaks built into the program. At around 12 to 12:20, Malik will have lunch, followed by recess at around 12:20 to 12:50 p.m. Then at 12:50, Malik will transition back into his classroom to engage in his afternoon classes. And during this time, he will engage in whole group and breakout work groups within the different content areas. At 2:50, Malik will either board the bus or be picked up by a guardian or engage in after school activities, which in this case would be after school care. Now, if Malik were to be a distance learning student, his day will look similar but different in different perspectives. So Malik will start his day around 7:55 a.m., where he would be logging into the school. Between 8 and 8:15, he will be getting ready for his distance learning experience. At 8:15, he will be joining his class in an SEL activity. At 8:30, between 8:30 and 12, he will have his classes with breakouts that will be led by the teacher or in support of the paraeducator. And obviously tech breaks will be encompassed, while others will be having math breaks. The kids at home will be engaging in tech breaks. Between 12 and 12:20, he will have an articulated lunchtime. If the child is home, the parent can decide between 12:20 and 12:50 if they can engage in some activity to kind of relax or de-stress from the day. At around 12:50 to 2:50, Malik will continue his afternoon classes in a combination of different groupings. And then his day will end at 2:50, where he'll be done with his coursework, and then parents can decide how to proceed with his afternoon activities at that point. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Myers to speak into the intricacies of what the day would look like for both students. Dr. Myers?
Thank you so much. Good evening. You know, as we were looking at that pattern and we're watching, if Malika's actually two students, those two students would actually have the same fourth grade teacher, and they would be following the same daily schedule, even though one student is face to face and one student is working remotely. We've put a couple of slides in for you, and I know they're very detailed, but I want to give you a flavor of how that day would go for either student, whether they are face-to-face or virtual. As you know, we come into the classroom and we would be signing in so that everyone is logged in for the morning and attendance is taken. And we would be starting a whole group activity. So when we think about an elementary day, we think about time that is whole group, that is for children who are face-to-face and virtual. In this example, in a fourth grade classroom. We also think about our small group instruction, where a teacher might be working with a small group face-to-face, a small group virtual, maybe a para is working with a group, or maybe there are some students that are in the face-to-face and the virtual working together. So small group structures are very common in our elementary classroom. While we're getting our reading instruction, students would also have independent learning time, time where they may be reading, writing, completing an activity. The teacher would lay this out for them on a choice board where they can see what their assignments are for the week. And they would have all of their reading and resources available so that they could have instruction. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see that after we move from the reading block, we may have our movement, our mask break, maybe our snack time. We then move into a specials block. Our students would still have access to art, music, physical education. And in those specials, we would be working on keeping children in a cohort by grade level. So an art teacher might be working with our students in fourth grade for 2 or 3 weeks, while maybe the music teacher is working with second grade. So that we're kind of focusing our specials instead of rotating them every day across the week. We might then move into our writing workshop time. We take attendance both in the morning and in the afternoon. We always kind of open our session with our virtual learning so that all students sign in. We get our assignments, and then we'd be moving into our small group work, maybe some one-to-one conferencing, maybe 2 students talking to each other about looking at their writing work and doing some revision. Then coming back together. That whole group time is for students to be able to ask questions, to clarify, maybe to share their work. We would also, the elementary students would be having lunch in their classroom. Students at home would be taking that time for lunch as well. I hope that you can see in this kind of detailed list, as well as the day in the life, that the 2 schedules parallel, whether you're face-to-face or you're working remotely, and that the checkpoints for the teacher to have everyone signed in. One of the things that was really important to our parents, particularly in this design, is that your classroom teacher is your teacher for the year. This is the teacher who's doing your report card, and whether we're face-to-face or virtual, this teacher stays with you throughout your fourth grade year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. So just quickly around elementary school lunch and recess, Frank, can you just provide an update?
Sure. At the elementary level recess, you can see here that image is pulled from the Tracy Elementary School operating manual, and you can see the large yellow bubbles. Those are demarked locations in the field where cohorts of students will go play together. We have socially distanced games planned for them, and they will remain in those areas and not go outside of those areas. Meals at the elementary level, as well as the middle and high school, will all be prepackaged. They'll be sealed per FDA regulations. And at the elementary level, we will have carts with the meals delivered to different areas of the school building. Kitchens at the elementary and middle school level will be closed off. Students will get their meal at the cart. They'll go back to their classroom and they'll dine inside of their classroom.
Thank you. So one of the things that we need to do in order to accommodate all of the students in elementary school within our different campuses and to allow the fluid transition between in-person and distance learning for those parents that opt into the different choices that they have, is that we're going to be using the Jefferson campus as a site for those schools that cannot, don't have enough space to fit all of their grades. So right now, Narragansett, Silvermine, and Tracy will have 4th and 5th grade relocated to the old Jefferson campus. I know there's been some commentary made about the safety and the health parameters of the building. And as a result of that, I'm going to put on the link, Ralph, if you can do that now, the OSHA report on the air quality and other health concerns that people had about this building. Based on the OSHA report, the building is not hazardous and is well equipped to have children in the building. The reason why this building is being rebuilt is because of capacity and adding capacity. As you know, that we have external classroom stations as a result of the fact that students don't all fit in the current campus. So I want to make sure that parents are at ease knowing that the building is safe and habitable for students. And that's why I'm going to put up the OSHA report for people to have and look into. The other thing to know is that in order to keep a cohesive program, we're going to assign a CISD, an administrator to the building. We will have a school nurse, custodial team, on-site security, and secretary for this building as an additional support. But all of the teachers will be from their home school. All of the services will be provided from their home school, and their principals will be cycling through to ensure that all the programming needs are being met and that adequate supervision is being provided at these different sites. Transportation will be provided for the students at Jefferson. And a special town hall, as I articulated earlier, will take place August 18 with the administrator that will be overseeing this site in collaboration with the other 3 principals that will be utilizing this space to accommodate the other the 4th and 5th grade students in their school. I'm going to turn it over to Ralph now to speak to some of the connectivity work that has been done.
Thank you, Dr. Estrella. And if hopefully everybody has seen the latest press release that we talked earlier, and one thing that we realized through this whole process was that we did have a lot of inequity with students in having access, whether it was a device or whether it was actually internet access. So we've been able to correct this. As of September, all K-12 students will have a device, and we are deploying them currently, and I'll show you the schedule for deployment in just a moment. But in partnership with our city and with the Dalio Family Foundation, we've been able to now give 1,000 families broadband access. So they won't be, like I said, they won't be using hotspots. They'll actually be using true broadband access in their homes, the installations will start in about a week. We've already identified the first 145 families from this, and the identification came from the re-registration process, where families indicated whether or not they did not have internet access. We are prioritizing that first 145. These are parents that have decided to stay remote in their learning, and they actually need to make sure that they have internet access at the beginning of the school year. So LTS will start their installations within about a week.
And the other piece I think, Ralph, that I want to know is that we're working with the Norwalk Public Library to also provide little pod stations that will allow students that have connectivity issues a space during the hybrid days that are distance learning days, and they can utilize the public library as a place to go and work. And we're going to have paraeducators at these sites as an additional support for those students that might need it.
Yes, at the 2 public libraries and also the Carver Center.
At the Carver Center.
Yes, so definitely, yeah, thanks. So thank you for mentioning that too. So our devices, currently grades 3 through 8, those students already currently have their devices. So they're actually in place. Starting next week, principals will be contacting and have been contacting parents to let them know the schedule for students to come in and pick up their laptop. We will be doing it in a manner that keeps a social distance. So it'll be a drive-through where they'll be able to have a technician come out, get the student's name, and hand off the laptop to that student and make sure that we tag it correctly. There is a specific schedule at each one of the high school, all 4 high schools, and those schedules are being sent out to the parents through the principals. Our K2 laptops have arrived. So we now have tablets, convertible tablets from Dell for our K2 students. They are at the elementary school buildings. Next week, we will be tagging them per student, and they will be prepped so that when students come in on that first day, they will actually have their laptops in their room to begin working with their teachers. Students that are going to be accessing the building remotely will be contacted by their principal a few days prior to the beginning of school so they can come in and schedule a time to come pick up their laptop as well. That's our device schedule, our device deployment. And then finally, one of the things we wanted to do too is we realized in this over the past few months is the idea and the expansion of our online and in-person support. So we will have a new site that will be available that will be manned from 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock with a number of staff members that will be able to answer questions for parents in a number of different areas. So parents will have the option of either logging into a Zoom call. It'll be an open call where they just click on the link and go in, or they'll be able to call into that same Zoom call with a phone number. The types of questions that we'll be answering there are connectivity questions. How do I log in? I need to reset my password. Device questions, basic device questions. How do I plug in a microphone to my laptop? How do I turn it on? I'm having this simple problem that I'm not sure exactly how to connect it to my Wi-Fi. And then also applications. So how do I use a specific application? I can't access Google Classroom. How do I get support with that? So we will have actually a manned live support for parents throughout the day, 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock as the year begins. And finally, we did have our Depot Center, which was at the Newark Pathways Academy last year for students that needed replacement devices. That will continue into this current year as well. So we'll actually have that in place, and there will be scheduled hours where parents, if they do have a replacement device, just to keep social distancing, we'll schedule a time saying you need to come between this time frame. We'll work it out with them, and they can then come down and pick up their new device. Great, thank you, Dr. Estrella.
And Dr. Gurovich, can you briefly talk about the special education piece and the forum, just because I want to give some time for questions?
Absolutely. Thank you and good evening. So the district has made a commitment to serve our most impacted students as a priority, and that includes all students with IEPs. Students with IEPs will have the opportunity to attend in the elementary school 5 days a week, or if their parents choose to have online support. We have been working with each building principal around a concept called cohort cluster grouping, in which groups of students with similar needs are placed into one classroom, and then working with the building principal to make sure that those classes then are balanced with regard to gender and race and academic functioning. This comes out of decades of research of best practices in co-teaching and from our school-wide enrichment model. This will allow a special education teacher to push into those general education classrooms, each teacher covering 2 to 3 classrooms, thus limiting the teachers pulling students out across classrooms, and will assure compliance with IEP needs. Related services will be provided in person in specialized classrooms or most intense environments, and then the rest of those services will be provided synchronously through an online teletherapy program facilitated by the adults in the classroom, such as the paraprofessionals. This has worked very well this summer in ESY. PPTs and evaluations will continue to be conducted as they have been all summer, and the PPTs will continue to be scheduled remotely. We are doing outreach to our families with students who are medically fragile, so that we can plan very individualized programs for those children. And we are also working to look at alternatives for some of our community-based programs.
Thank you, Dr. Gervin.
Sure. We are scheduling a special town hall meeting, as Dr. Estrella mentioned, for Monday at 4 o'clock, where we can go into detail about a day in the life of a student with an IEP, depending upon the intensity of that student's needs.
Thank you. So I'm going to go into some of the questions. I've been scanning some of the questions in terms of classroom assignment and teacher assignment. During the elementary school forum, that's a question that the principals can articulate in terms of classroom assignments. In terms of additional personnel within the district, we and the principals have articulated the need. Most of the hires are going to be for paraeducators to support teachers in the classroom. And Javier can speak to some of the work he's doing around recruiting the additional personnel that we might need to fulfill the program. Javier?
Yes, so thank you. So we have been actively, we have posted and we are actively recruiting through different pipelines for our specialized learning teachers, general teachers, as well as paras. We have also been engaged in conversations with ESS, which is the partner that we contracted last year for substitutes. And we are also having conversations with them to expand, not just for certified staff, but also for any additional paras that we may need. We may, I spoke to them earlier this week. Their pipeline is actually pretty robust because of the unemployment that's happening in other industries. So we're feeling confident that we will be able to hire the necessary people to staff accordingly.
Thank you, Javier. There's a question about first graders and play. One of the things we're working to ensure that those opportunities are afforded, and principals are working to strategize around how to utilize the different equipment in the classroom and ensure student safety. We've been in conversation with the state around that matter, because I know for pre-K, they are allowed to socially interact in that way. And I've been advocating for the same for K and 1, but we will provide more guidance on that piece as we acquire it from the state. Somebody asked a question about why we're meeting via Zoom. We had over 260 with people attending that violated the guidelines from the state around group size if we had this forum in person. And then in terms of the model, Brenda, can you speak a little bit about Group A and Group B? There's a question about to clarify, because of the need to split children into Group A and B, does this mean an in-person learner will be watching their teacher part of the day on Google Meet because they are in a different room?
So we have some situations where we do have a teacher with 2 classrooms with a para, and the students that are in the classrooms, as well as the students that are working from home, will have periods of time where they're all signing in through Google Meet. They're having a video conference, and then they'll break into small groups where they may close their video conference, but they might be working in their Google Classroom or working in Seesaw. I know one of the things that, as we're working through our reopening plan, we are working in a blended environment. And so you'll find, even if I'm a teacher with my class in front of me and a few students working remotely, we will have time in our blended environment where we're all video conferencing so that we are connected to our classmates at home. We may be working with a classmate at home on an assignment or a writing piece, because we're all going to have our computer as part of our learning structure. All of our students will have their daily work in a learning management system. We might submit our writing into a Flipgrid piece or a little video that we're sharing, but we're going to be using the technology tools so that all students are communicating with each other as part of this classroom unit, some remotely and some at home. I know there was a good question too. If you've chosen for your child to be working from home, you can see they'll have a daily schedule that's predictable each day. But, depending on the age of your child and their independence, they need your help getting their computer up in the morning, getting signed in. They're going to need to know, when they take their break, making sure they can get logged back in afterwards. And as all of our children, they may have questions about an assignment and they may turn to you for that. So we know that even as our students are working at home and our teacher is in contact with them, they're going to need their parent or an adult to give them some assistance at the elementary level.
Thank you, Dr. Myers. And Frank, as a last piece, I'm going to combine these 2 questions. I think Frank and Sandra can address these. Is how do we intend to separate the spaces outdoors? And for fire drills and emergency evacuation drills, what is the plan?
In the first question, principals are going to be actually demarking the locations outside, and they're going to use different materials. One described a non-toxic paint that they would be able to spray to create the large circles that students would be able to identify and go to. But that's just one example, and there are different ways to show that. Joe Rios, our district school preparedness coordinator, is waiting on the state to provide guidance on the best ways to conduct fire drills, lockdowns, and any other drills during this pandemic. And so we will be incorporating those guidelines into the individual operating plans once we have those.
Thank you, Frank. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. I know this process has not been easy for anyone. And as we continue to refine and acquire information, we will continue to provide it to you as we have it. I know Tom was going to articulate a little bit about the budget, but I just wanted to say that we're waiting also from the state in terms of how much funding we are acquiring to reopen. And when we acquire that information, we will make the community aware. We will have this PowerPoint available on the website for you to have access to it. And I just wanted to say thank you for your patience and through this whole transition. I know this has not been easy, but I'm really happy to be part of this community because all the emails that I have received have been emails of a very thoughtful, collaborative, and very insightful questions that are just going to help us get better at the work we need to do to ensure that our students have a safe return back to school. So
Alex, can I interrupt if you don't mind? I'm sorry, just before we go, I just had a brief comment and question, if you don't mind. I know we're running a little behind, but I just had two quick questions.
Sure.
In regards to the filters, I know in one of the earlier slides, it was mentioned that we'll be receiving it mid-September. Two questions in regards to that. Is there a reason why we couldn't get it sooner? And then the second part to that question is, how often do we need to replace those just to make sure that they're effective?
So with the reason why is because they're in back order because everybody's trying to get them. And
Okay.
we couldn't get them any sooner. They were actually back ordered to December, and the team really got on a special mission to try and get them sooner, and we managed to get them for mid-September. In terms of replacement, I'm going to turn that over to Bill Holdell in terms of how often they have to be replaced.
Well, normally, generally speaking, we would do it twice a year. We're now doing it quarterly. When you upgrade from what we have now to the 13, they're highly effective. So by doing it quarterly, we're guaranteeing a very safe environment.
Okay, thank you, Bill. And Alex, just one last comment. For 4th and 5th graders, that could possibly going to Jefferson from Merrimack, Silvermine, and Tracy. Will everything remain the same? I know we discussed kind of a day in the life of Malik, what his day would look like. Would that be very similar to our 4th and 5th grade students? I just want to make sure, obviously, we're consistent and there's continuity throughout the grade levels.
They will remain the same. They're just in a different location. Actually, the benefit of the Jefferson campus is that students, all students will be able to be with their teacher, and we wouldn't have to split the classes because the classrooms are big enough that we can fit all students in one room. There's partitions that we're removing and doubling the size of the classroom. We're taking 2 classrooms and converting them into one. Allowing for adequate space to socially distance all the students in that complex. So
great. And also, yeah, we will also be utilizing the filters as well in Jefferson that we'll be utilizing in our other schools.
Absolutely, they were on the list of schools that will be done before the end of the school year, before the start of the school year. Sorry.
Thank you. And I just want to give a shout out to everybody on the panel that's worked and everybody behind the scenes that's really worked hard. And I appreciate the very thorough and extensive presentation tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. And with that, I want to conclude our forum for tonight. Again, thank you for your patience. I know this is not an easy process and time, and the decisions that we are all making are very difficult. But at the end of the day, I'm looking forward to an amazing start of the school year and for our kids to have fun and enjoy their learning experience, whether they do it via distance learning or in person. So looking forward to until next time. Have a good night.
Thank you.